Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
Welcome to Hopinions, and we are diving straight in to the Cannonball Run. But Martin, which beer are we actually starting with?
Well, evening, Steve. We've decided, and this may be a bit of a shock to a few people, we've decided to start straight away with the newbie, the Neo-Human Cannonball. This is a New England dipper, and comes in at 9.2%. So a very sensible start to any show. I think you'll agree.
Yeah, diving straight in at the deep end.
But yeah, we thought about this and we've discussed it, and I think we discussed it quite openly on Twitter recently. Let's go into this one. No preconceptions, completely clean palate.
Yep.
Standalone beer. See what it's like.
Yeah, and normally we would have maybe a beer or two as a bit of a warm up before we start recording, but we've come into this completely fresh.
Yeah,
so
completely fresh.
Just been drinking water, so we're gonna give this a completely honest view. And the first thing I'm going to say is the aroma coming off of that.
It's all over the kitchen now.
Is stunning. That is like tropical fruit juice.
Yeah, which it also looks like.
It does. It does. Yeah, but it's got a decent head on it. So,
Yeah.
Cheers. Let's get stuck into this.
It's got quite a sharpness about it.
It is sharp. I'm getting a huge amount of mango and passion fruit there. They're the two flavours that are really dominant.
Very much so. Very soft mouthfeel.
Yeah. You know what? I'm getting a nice hint of bitterness at the end of that as well.
And my mouth is quite dry now.
Yeah.
Which I'm quite liking that aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
But the it hasn't, although it's got that slightly fuller mouthfeel, it's not thick. It doesn't feel thick.
No, and it's not got that sugary sweetness that can sometimes coat your mouth with this particular New England style as well.
I mean, the going back to the aroma, it's just fantastic. Now, unusually for us, we're because we're doing one each of the 500 milliliter cans. We're drinking this out of a pint glass.
We are drinking out of a pint glass.
Mainly because none of the craft glasses can take these cans anyway.
Well, yeah, because we did have, as you say, the great idea of
one
can each of the beers.
And I don't know whether that helps but there's so much aroma coming out of this glass.
There is. I think, to be fair though, the second we cracked those cans, that aroma was there.
Yeah.
It was like an aroma bomb had been released.
But I'm loving that real sharpness to it as well, which goes with those kind of fruits that you described at the start. Just nice and sharp, really clean as well.
It is really clean. Now obviously folk will know that we're not massive fans of the New England style.
Yep.
And again, that was part of our reasoning for doing this first, was to be a little bit open with our views and not being not tainted. Well, yeah, maybe tainted by any of the, or swayed by any of the other beers. But I've got to say that full props to Magic Rock for what they've done here this year. Because when they announced the beers for this year, I was a little surprised to see another one in there, but I wasn't completely surprised by it, if you know what I mean. Because I think, let's be honest, New England at the moment is very much the on-trend style.
Yeah, and I would say Magic Rock have dabbled in the style here and there without actually bringing out something called the New England.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've definitely dabbled in this kind of more hazy type of beer compared to some of the other beers we really like from them. I've had a couple of them, and some have been good, some have been okay, none have been awful. And I think I've also said before, but I think what really works for this kind of style is the lower ABV end of the scale, like the small beers from Cloudwater.
Not the 9.2%.
Not the 9.2. I think this is probably going to be the strongest New England style beer I've had.
Yeah, same here possibly, actually.
I can't think I've had a stronger New England style. I think more. I keep trying. When I was reading it at home, I said, "Yeah, Northeast."
I keep wanting to say Northeast with it.
Northeast, yes. Well, yes, it's from up north, but hey, it's not from Northeast. But I think that so far, aroma, flavour, balance, not getting any of that 9.2%.
No, that's the one thing that's not there at all.
Getting any burn?
No, it's really easy. I mean, and for all intents and purposes, and again, this is what I think is it's very clever what they've done here, because they've taken the style that is on trend at the moment,
yep,
and they've put it into an already established series.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've done is used exactly the same recipe as Human Cannonball.
Mm-hmm.
They've changed the yeast.
Yep.
They've added a few wheats and oats
the malt bill has been changed
to it as well, and they've given you something alongside the standard beers that you expect. And I was really grateful for that, because one of the things that I was worried about was that they were going to New Englandify one of the other beers.
Oh, okay.
For this year, and you were going to, because the other what the other beers that we're going to drink tonight are known for is that West Coast
is
style.
that West Coast? Yeah, definitely.
And I was really worried that one of them was going to come out like this, but hats off to them.
I mean, the obvious,
just bringing out a new beer.
The obvious one to do that would have been the Human Cannonball, wouldn't it?
It would have been, yeah, because it sits in that range,
as you've called it, that middle brother kind of range. But and to be honest, I mean, by doing that, at least for people like us who aren't necessarily leaping for this style, it definitely got us to order it.
Absolutely. And I've got to say, already about halfway through my glass, which maybe isn't a great sign considering what we've got coming up, I'm actually regretting only ordering one of these for the show, because this is a beer that I would quite happily drink again.
I'd say at the moment, hats off. It's what I do remember, and we'll find out from, especially with the Human and Unhuman Cannonball in previous runs, I can feel that booze.
Yeah.
The West Coast style, I think, is harder, for me anyway, I think it's harder to hide as it goes up the ABV scale. This one,
it's perfectly balanced, isn't it? It's so well balanced.
So and it has been apart from a few rain showers in our part of the world, it's been a very hot day. You were sitting outside in the sunshine in the afternoon, someone just passed you this, it wouldn't take long to drink.
It would get very dangerous,
and I reckon you could easily have a second one, and then there might be a bit of a wobble already.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
But yeah, it's a great opening. I'm really glad we've done this.
I'm glad we've done it first, actually, and kind of the flavour profile, I think, is going to lend itself to where we go from here.
Yeah.
Which we'll come on to in good time. So it's been a couple of weeks since we actually recorded last, because the last show we did, the Hop Stuff show, we actually recorded that 10 days before it came out. So we must have been up to loads in that time, mustn't we?
Yeah, I was thinking about that on the way over to your place, Dave. Well, I spent a week in the Netherlands during this period with work for a course. Sometimes if anyone who's been on any sort of residential course in a hotel, and you like beer, you're wondering what will they have on offer. The beer, we were allowed two small beers during the meals in the evening, and that was Bavaria, so like standard Pilsner. It was fine, it was paid for. But they did have some Joppen, I think it's how you say it, Joppen beers from Haarlem, and they had a couple of nice ones in the fridge beside the North Sea IPA, and another one which I'm not even going to pretend to try and pronounce, but it was one which they do a variant on every so often, and this one actually was, I was lucky enough to pick the one which had mosaic in it. So I did have quite a few of those, I have to admit, on the two middle nights. And also, luckily, when I went out for a cycle ride on one of the days, just hired a bike, went out to the beach one evening, and on the way back took a different turning, went through this village, Voorhout, and stumbled across a blackboard outside which said 100 beers. I can read beer.
Challenge accepted.
And I stopped. I missed dinner back at the hotel. Oops. And just sat there outside in the sunshine with the bike, and they brought out some nuts, they brought out some cheese, got talking to the owner, and they brought out a few different beers, and just had a wonderful 3 hours there. So if anyone's thinking about going to Amsterdam and they're not too sure where to stay, this place has 8 rooms as well, so let me know and I'll definitely give you the contact details, because it was a lovely little spot, 100 yards from the train line into Amsterdam as well, so I reckon it's about a 20-minute journey to Central. So yeah, I did that, And I suppose one of the other things is I've made 2 visits to Beer Merchants Tap since we last recorded.
Yeah, because we
one
went
of them was
there,
with you.
We went there after the recording at Hop Stuff, didn't we?
Because we needed to do that.
Yeah. Well, we essentially had a free evening, and we wanted to make the most of it, and I think we both knew that a visit to the Beer Merchants Tap was well overdue.
Yeah, and they had our card behind the bar.
So we headed out there for what was going to be a couple of drinks, and ended up being, I think, one drink. And we bumped into
Johnny from Craft Beer Channel.
Yeah.
Erstwhile guest of the show on occasion, and he treated us to a couple of tasters as well.
Yeah, because there was a Beaver Town tasting going on, wasn't there? And he went in and kind of swiped us a couple of tasters from that.
Yeah, what was the name of that? We had that 3% sour, didn't we?
Oh, it was.
Oh no, it was 1.9%.
Was that the Kvass?
Yeah.
Is that the one on my head? Yeah.
That was fantastic.
I love that.
1.9.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. I mean,
yeah,
we probably could do a 1.9 as part of tonight's range.
A complete contrast to what we're drinking here.
And I have to say, admittedly that first visit we'd been out in the afternoon, but I thought the setup was really nice in there. Just that little,
it's a lovely space.
That little peek through to where they were doing the tasting. They've got the outside bit and a couple of street food vendors, and they've got a slightly mezzanine level inside as well. So plenty of room as well. Bags of fridges and stuff. Everything nicely and clearly priced. Your drinking price and your takeout price, all nice and clear. I made a return visit a weekend ago when I took Michelle to go and see Black Panther. So I forced myself to go and watch it again.
The things you do, mate.
Things I do for love.
Yeah.
And so one of the few places we still had it on was View at Stratford. So short walk to Beer Merchants. I've got my tab.
Yeah.
I quite like it. What they do is they swipe the card fairly much as if it was a normal Visa card, and then they give you a receipt which just gives you the updated balance every time.
Okay, brilliant.
So you know exactly where you are all the time. It's a really nice system, and so far one of my favourite investments. Yeah. It's nice and clear, nice and clean, and I've been able to pick it up and I've been able to use it, and nothing's changed either. So I'm quite happy with it so far. The second time I went and had Bloody Hell again, it was tasting even better a couple of weeks later, I thought.
Really? I mean, we had that the night we were there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got to say, I've really enjoyed this year's Bloody Hell release, which seems to be the unpopular position because it's not had a lot of overwhelming love on Untapped.
Maybe people have just, I don't know if people just got too used to it. Maybe there's so many other beers orange infused. I don't know.
Do you think it's the likes of the New England style that are really, really juicy and you get all those flavours off of it, and then you get something like Bloody Hell, which for me this year was almost a perfect example of this dank West Coast IPA laden with citrus fruit that wasn't juicy?
Yeah.
And do you think people wanted the juice from that?
I think potentially. I mean, it's a bit like our early journey where both the West Coast side, our bitterness levels and piney and dankness have probably gone, our tolerance levels have probably changed.
Yeah.
If people have had the last year to 18 months drinking more than New England, suddenly you go back to Bloody Hell,
and
it's going to be a contrast there. But I, a bit like you, I was enjoying it. I had to admit, I enjoyed it that night, but I did think it was even better the second time around, and I hope they always bring it out. Because that is an annual release as well, isn't it?
That is an annual release, and we'll come on to that as one of tonight's.
I'm quite happy to have that on there.
Yeah.
The other things I want to throw in is thanks to our friend Clayton, who brought a couple of beers back for us to try.
Off in the States, yeah.
And he brought us back Impeachment, so that was a stone beer.
Double IPA.
We infused with peaches. Me and you split that can, and that lasted about 90 seconds, I reckon.
Yeah.
At that. And then I've forgotten the name of the first one, but it was like a 5.7, just a West Coast Pale Ale. On point.
That was incredibly drinkable.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for him bringing that.
So thank you very much
for us as well,
Clayton, for bringing that back.
Yeah. Well, other than going to Beer Merchants after Hop Stuff, I do intend to go back again actually in a few weeks' time because I'm going to see the Foo Fighters at the London Stadium, and I plan to go and make the most of my investment in Beer Merchants before the gig rather than paying £5-6 quid for a pint of warm beer in a plastic cup.
I think that's a good plan.
Yeah,
I think it's a good plan.
Other than that, I went to Coventry for a day trip, which
you didn't go alone, though, did you?
No, I went with Matt Chinnery, also known as the Half Pint Gent, and we were perfectly chaperoned around Coventry by Carl at the Bearded One.
It just started out, if I remember correctly, the planning between you and Half Pint was, let's go to Twisted Barrel.
That's what we thought we were doing. We ended up doing something like a 4-stop crawlish around Coventry.
So you did a brewery?
We went to Byatt's Brewery to start off with, which was kind of on the outskirts of town on an industrial estate. Within sight and walk of the Ricoh Arena. Okay. So apparently it's a very popular haunt for the rugby crowd that have found themselves at the Ricoh Arena to watch. I think it's the Wasps, isn't it, that play there.
Which is bizarre, but Wasps play in Coventry.
Yeah, the London side. Very traditional beers. It was a full cask offering that we had there, and actually had a cask black IPA. Which for my tastes was more hoppy stout than it was black IPA. So we had a couple in there, and then very, very gratefully we were across these first 2 stops. We were actually driven around by Carl's soon-to-be other half.
Oh, okay, because she was on the Crimbo Corvus as well, wasn't she?
Yeah. So she then drove us from there to Beer Gonzo, which is bottle shop and online store. Also has a tasting room out the back.
What did you think of the tasting room?
It was tiny. Not really what I expected. I think I expected something bigger.
Yeah.
Great selection of beers.
Great selection of beers.
Absolutely. I mean, I got wind of the fact that they had on a beer that the guys on Men Behaving Badly were talking about, the Wander Beyond mini milkshake.
Isn't that the one that Michelle tried when we were in Manchester? Yeah. Because they were the guys who released their cans that same weekend, wasn't it, when we were in Manchester?
Yeah.
Because there's the milkshake IPA and there's a mini milkshake, isn't there?
They've got a milkshake IPA which is about 5%. Then they've got the Imperial Milkshake IPA, which was the one they've released in a can, which is 10%. Yeah. And then they've got the mini milkshake, which is about 3%. So,
and
I had a pint of that. First, it was really weird to get a pint-sized Craft Master 1 glass. So that's one of these.
Oh, okay.
People can't see the one I'm holding up, but you will know what a Craft Master is. They did it in pint version of that, which was really weird. I felt like I had a really big little hand holding a big beer. It was stunning. I mean, I smashed my way through it. It was a little bit sugary sweet towards the end, but it was really, really drinkable. And at that percentage, you could literally drink that all day long.
Oh, cool. I mean, because it was Mark, wasn't it? Who was raving about it or behaving badly. Yeah. And then he said that was his first 5 on Untapped.
I know. I was like, I maybe wouldn't have gone that far. The Imperial Milkshake one, which I took to the last bottle share, gave that 5 because that was a 5. That was
sounds like these guys are someone to watch then.
I think so. I think very much keep an eye on Wander Beyond. And then from Beer Gonzo we then walked back into Coventry, went to a bar whose name I can't remember at this stage, a couple of beers in there, and then we walked down to Twisted Barrel and had a few good beers in there, most of which I've got to say, thanks to Carl. Carl was very generous with as well in sorting us out with some beers while we were in there. I think the only downside to the entire day for me was that I got to a point where I wanted some bitterness in my beer, and I literally couldn't find a beer that had a bitter finish. Everything was juicy and everything had a clean, sugary finish.
You needed an axe edge.
I needed something. In the end, I had to drink the beer that I was trying to avoid drinking all day long. It was a Twisted Barrel beer called Nemesis, which was, for people that know, this was the beer that put Carl in hospital, which is possibly why it's got its name of Nemesis, which was essentially a West Coast Pale. it was on cask, and that was the beer that just kind of did it for me at that point in the day. It was what I was looking for. And I think we then had a few more beers possibly on the train on the way home as well. But it was a great day, and again, many thanks to Carl for taking the time to show us around the town and actually show us that again the Midlands is this growing scene.
It is a growing scene. I think probably it's just a bit like when we went to Birmingham. You do have to do a little bit of crisscrossing and have people who know where they're going as well. And if you're not familiar with the area, because when we did the Birmingham one, we went out quite a bit to Burning Soul, didn't we? And came back in again and did a few little bits here and there. I mean, it's probably the same. Sounds like similar sort of journey you did with Coventry. It wasn't like a straight line, easily got to. Because I remember Beer Gonzo, when me and my brother went there from Twisted Barrel, we got a taxi.
Yeah, it's because they're completely opposite sides of the main town centre. The interesting thing was that en route from Beer Gonzo to the bar, whose name I can't remember, we actually passed 3 Wetherspoons.
Well, there's a Wetherspoons beside Beer Gonzo, isn't there?
Yeah.
Effectively. Because me and my brother talked about, if we go to Coventry again, I'll plant mum and dad in Wetherspoons.
Yeah.
We'll go next door for a couple of hours. Everyone will be happy.
Well, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, so it was quite the trek actually. The place that I can't remember, I've just looked it up. A place called Drapers, which is just on the right side of town for Twisted Barrel. It's then about a 10-minute walk down to Twisted Barrel. Quite an interesting venue.
The 10-minute walk was probably needed anyway at that point.
By that point, yeah. I think there may have been dirty chicken en route as well.
So just needed.
Every time, yeah.
Always needed.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we both had a couple of interesting little
getting
trips.
out and finding new places.
It is. Sometimes it is just the new places.
Yeah.
I would, like I said, I would have been quite happy in that place in near the hotel in Holland. By the way, I did have to cycle back that evening as well. Fortunately, the Dutch know how to do cycle paths.
Brilliant.
I would have been quite happy almost having any beer.
Yeah.
Because of where the venue was.
With 100 beers to choose from.
Yeah, I could have almost any beer, to be fair. I did a typical thing. What would you like? I'd really like an IPA right now, please. Okay. Right, so.
Yeah, here's your choices. Yeah.
But no, it's been a good couple of weeks.
Yeah. So we've obviously been chugging our way through the neo-human Cannonball.
Still loving it.
I'm really enjoying it.
I haven't got too much more to add apart from the fact that I can't remember the last. Again, strongest New England IPA, and definitely the most in quantity I've had in one sitting, I imagine. So I would normally have third, half, 2/3, or split a can.
Yeah.
So 500ml can, I can't imagine I've done that.
I'm possibly right in saying here that Magic Rock are still one of the only breweries putting out 500 mils. Everyone else is putting out 440s still.
It tends to be the
they?
440s, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I've Magic ever done the 440s? Don't think they have they?
No, I think they went
it's
straight
either
to
330s or
500s.
500s.
Yeah.
Because I think all the other special ones we've had was 500s.
Yeah. Oh, which reminds me, I'll tell you what I did have as well, which I do want to mention because I got a lot of grief for being sceptical about this one. I had the Buxton Axe X, which was the
you were sceptical.
The New England version of Axe Edge, Buxton's first 440ml can. Really enjoyed it. Actually, it's no Axe Edge. It really isn't. But again, much the same as this one. It didn't have the sugary sweetness. It had a little bit of bitterness. It was perfectly drinkable.
And is that similar to this? Is it a similar build of the beer? With tweaks?
I don't know. I've not looked into it enough because Buxton have put out. Not only did they put that out, they put out a double dry hopped version of standard Axe Edge as well recently. So, for all intents and purposes, there's been 3 versions of Axe Edge on the market for a while.
Well, maybe there's a future. So.
Maybe if they carry on doing the double dry hop version, but it's also interesting to see that Buxton are now putting more beers into cans as well. So Buxton have now gone down that canning route that so many other breweries have gone down.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can see why. It does make it easier to carry.
Yeah, the cans are slowly creeping closer to Thornbridge, aren't they?
Ooh.
Let's sort of see how people react to that one. Okay, so we're going to do 2 polls again tonight, and in what's going to be probably the new format for the show now, we're going to do poll, then some news in the middle, then another poll, rather than doing 2 polls back to back, because we feel as though some of the content gets lost if we just are constantly talking about polls.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
First question that we asked folks for this week's show was, with Magic Rock's Unhuman Cannonball out this week, always on trend, mate, always on trend, we're asking if you still get excited by annual release beers. So we got 396 votes. 66% of people said yes, 34% of people said no. So that's quite favourable towards the yes. Interesting to note that I think because we mentioned Magic Rock and Unhuman Cannonball in the question, that was what most people focused on.
It got mentioned quite a few times, didn't it?
Yeah, rather than focusing on some of those other releases that happen. But let's dig into some of the comments, and then we'll focus on our comments or our views on this, I think. So first up, we had Edward Shaw at Dr. Shaw 69. Definitely and certainly more than the weekly batch of collaboration brews at the moment. So, what do you think on that one? I mean, that's quite a statement to get us going, isn't it?
It is. I think to me, I think I'm falling a bit behind on various collaboration brews. If I'm being honest,
I think they've stopped being
a thing,
haven't they? They just kind of happen now.
Yeah, I mean, it's only when you get maybe brewers doing it who you're not necessarily expecting. So when Fuller's did it, the Fullers and Friends did a batch of 6 in one hit. Here's your box, go and get it from Waitrose. Adnams, because again, it's a brewer that I wasn't necessarily expecting to do that kind of thing so often. But yeah, I think I've sort of lost track of it. I mean, I think there's just a lot less hype about them, to be honest.
I think I'd agree. Actually, I think it's just becoming something that certainly the craft side of the industry is known for. Is breweries collaborating with one another.
Literally, they actually generally seem to enjoy doing it. They generally seem to enjoy swapping ideas, getting together, mucking in, and hopefully producing something that is the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, but it's a point well made. But like I said, I think I've probably just fallen a bit behind on which ones are collaborations at the moment. Sometimes I don't know until I tap it in.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And then it has 2 breweries beside it. Oh, okay.
Or you get the badge. Get the badge. They're better together. Yeah. Next up, we've got Saisons in the Abyss, which is at 80 Goodrich. Yes, still excited, but glad there's enough to go around and get to the shops these days. No more frantic online scrambles. Now that's one that certainly triggers some memories in me. I've got to say that one does remind me of the year that I excitedly got up at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, fired up a laptop and had 2 iPads on the go as well, to be in with a chance of ordering one of the 110 bottles of Unhuman Cannonball that were going to be available at 7 a.m. So
did you get one?
I got a few. I mean, that's got to be that. I think that was year 3 of it, or it might have been year 2 actually.
Well, 2015 was my first year.
Yeah, so I mean, but that's an interesting point, because I think we first saw this last year, didn't we? That when the beers first went into the big cans, that there was a bit of a scramble on release morning.
Yeah, because it crashed as usual, all that kind of stuff. But
then they were everywhere.
Yeah, definitely heard a lot less about shortages.
Yeah,
and people being left disappointed. And that can only be a good thing. I mean, an annual release doesn't have to be limited.
No, it doesn't. But I think the annual releaseness of it is what makes it special.
But the more people then who want it, who can get hold of it, it's got to be a good thing.
Absolutely, and we've seen it again this year. You know, I think literally every online supplier had the beers. I've seen pretty much a lot of the bottle shops that I follow on Twitter have got them as well. And actually, we should probably say at this point as well that the beers that we're drinking tonight were actually gifted to us by Owls by Mouth.
Yeah, and thank you ever so much, because it meant we were able to guarantee we had them ready for the show as well.
Yeah, and we did we did have a bit of an order, because there were a few of us that wanted to go in, and they did allow us to order the beers that we wanted, make sure we had the beers for the show, and actually go and collect them from there as well. So massive thanks to Owls by Mal for giving us these beers to feature on the show. So next up, Hopzine at Hopzine. So that this is Rob. Unhuman is the original UK craft beer release event. It might not be my favourite beer, but it's a good excuse to meet up with mates.
You see, that's the thing. My first one was with you and Clayton.
At one of the craft beer clubs.
Craft beer club, Islington. And I quite enjoyed it, having it on tap as the day it was released. Now, obviously, it's changed a little bit with them having their tap room, but when I tried to find out where it was going to be released at that time, it was a little bit more vague on where it might be out, which is a bit of a shame because I quite enjoyed that social side of it. I mean, obviously, this is still social, but Robert's point is, for him, he's looking forward to this because he knows he's going to meet up with people either by design or by accident because they're going to go to the same place to drink this beer release.
Yeah,
and that's one thing it's I've missed out on this year.
Well, we're still going to get that opportunity, aren't we? Because
not till June though.
Yeah, we're going to an event that's being held at the Craft Beer Shop, which is again Owls by Mal shop front. Yeah, being held on the Father's Day weekend, where they're going to have all 4 of the cannonballs pouring. Yeah,
so we've told our children they're treating us to Father's Day.
That they aren't as fathers as well. Have you got your ticket that gets you a free pint?
I didn't know there was one that did that.
There are tickets that you get on Eventbrite. They're free, but you get a free pint as a...
Oh, because I've got my ticket, so we get...
You get a free one. I'm not sure we'll get a free pint of Unhuman Cannonball. I will try and argue the toss. That
you were reading that in my face there, weren't you?
This ticket doesn't say I can't have a pint of Unhuman Cannonball.
Followed immediately by "Don't you know who I am?"
Yeah, but no, that's interesting, and actually, I'm going to bring in another comment here because this kind of links to it. Now, obviously, I know Rob went to the release at the Magic Rock Tap Room on the Friday that it was out. And Mark Johnson and I had a bit of a to and fro on Twitter over when is Cannonball Day now.
Yeah, so and this goes back to what I was saying before. So Cannonball Day, I think quite clearly before was release day was you could buy them online, but they were released in probably about 4 or 5 places only in the UK. This
from 4 o'clock that day.
From 4 o'clock that day, and this is before Magic Rock had a tap room, wasn't it?
Yes. So it was all on the same day.
So it was quite clear.
Yeah.
Whereas now the beers are released about 5 days after they've been released at the weekend.
Yes.
At the Magic Rock Tap because they're open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, aren't they?
Yeah.
And Friday was the tap day. I don't know actually. I mean, if I went to the tap on the Friday and had my run live, so to speak, I'd be calling it Cannonball Day. You'd be claiming
that as Cannonball Day?
Yeah.
Well, this is what Mark said because, like I say, we had a bit of to and fro over this. He said, nope, everybody in the world has access to the beers from Friday. Today they are available through other means, but absolutely anybody could have had them on Friday, release day. Now, I get what he's saying, but I also disagree with that because not everyone has the means or ability to get to Huddersfield on release day.
Mark is a wordsmith and he's been brilliant there because he's accurately and literally correct. Anyone could have.
Yeah.
If you were prepared to go to one of the tap rooms, there was nothing preventing you from doing it. So, he is right. Whether, that's something that would be logistically possible or feasible, might be a better word, who knows. But I would probably have to say that, like I said, if I was there on the opening day, I'd be calling it Cannonball Run Day. A bit like you and I. When was the first Clayfest?
That's true. That was when there was just the 4 of us there, and it was a very, very, very unique event back.
So I might have to give Mark that one.
Reluctantly, I'm going to have to as well. I think I'm just a bit irked that the rest of us have to wait another 5 days to get our hands on them.
True, but
why can't they release everything online at the same day?
Well, maybe there's a future Beer O'Clock Show Opinions trip out.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, release day at Tap Room. Yeah. So, obviously we've finished the Neo Human Cannonball because we're opening a new can.
Yeah. Final thoughts from you, Steve?
Enjoyed it. Maybe started to struggle with it a little bit at the end as it began to warm in the glass.
I was going to say, but I think that's the only reason.
Yeah.
I think it was only because it was warming up.
I think if you were able to drink that, mate, given a choice, you wouldn't choose to drink almost a pint of that.
No.
You'd have a third of that, you'd drink it, and it would stay at the right temperature all the way through. We've obviously done 500ml cans. They're perfectly chilled, but it's a warm evening, and obviously things are going to warm up in the glass fairly quickly. But I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I thought it was really nice. I said, I'd agree with you. I think just that last little bit, but that was only where it started to warm up. That you start to get maybe slightly bit sweeter. Maybe it starts to feel a bit thicker.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it out there. That's probably going to get a 4 on Untapped for me. Probably the highest I've ever rated a New England style beer.
No, same here, but 9.2%. I still would say if you put that beside a Cloudwater small beer, which is only the 3%, as I referenced earlier, it'd be quite hard to choose between them. Where
you
the
struggle to know which one was which. Yeah. So now we're diving into the classic Cannonball Run.
Apparently, we have a green can,
which is the only colour that quality IPAs come in.
So Cannonball India Pale Ale. This is the first time I've ever seen them use the abbreviation was on the New England Dipper, because normally they're quite specific about saying India Pale Ale, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I actually think we'll see when the other two come out.
I think Rick from Measure Rock made a point of saying that it would always be India Pale Ale, but maybe to not make it such a mouthful.
But again, that's kind of on trend with that style. Is that's and we did this a few weeks back, didn't we? And that's a dipper.
That's what people were expecting.
Yeah.
From a dipper, what we've just had is what people expected according to our poll.
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely. So we've got some, what I can only assume is some rather very fresh Cannonball.
Yeah, and I've got to say, looking at that in the glass, that is the clearest I've seen Cannonball in a long time.
Reminds me of the time we had it back in the Ale House. You remember when we both remarked about it? Saying how good it looked and how good it was?
That looks like the beer that made me fall in love with craft beers.
Wait till you smell it.
Cheers. Oh. Well, that's pretty much hitting the spot, isn't it?
I'm trying to think when the last time I was. I did have a Cannonball, actually.
I think I may have had one as a train beer after one of the recording sessions that we did at Licorice.
Oh, well, I picked one up for the way home.
Yeah, because I needed a 7.4% beer.
Well, it might be one of the small beer evenings.
May have been, yeah.
Which case you were fine.
I mean, let's say that tastes great. That is what they've always set out for that to be. That's a West Coast IPA right there. Yeah. It's crisp, it's citrus throughout, and then it's got this lovely dry bitterness.
It's got that
just sits right.
It's got that dry bitter kick at the end, which makes me only want to do one thing, which is glug again.
Which is to absolutely smash our way through that. Well, let's smash our way through the rest of these comments. So next up, Miles Lambert at Miles Lambert. In all seriousness, no, I became bored of annual releases a few years back. There seem to be hyped up releases every week which never seem to quite live up to their billing, and genuinely the only annual release which ever did live up to my expectations was the release of Unhuman Cannonball. So again, very much commenting on the here and now. And
I suppose for me, and this probably, I think this ties into a point from Ruth, Beer Fairy, that we can come to. I don't always spot annual releases. Because I even checked with you when we were talking about Bloody Hell. I said that is an annual release, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it is an annual release, isn't it? It's
yeah.
With the blood red oranges, but I'm not actually that sure how many other annual releases I take notice of.
I don't think there are.
Fuller's Vintage Ale
as
is
many.
One I definitely look out
but that
for.
Doesn't. And again, someone did mention that. Was it? It wasn't Ruth. It was. So where's Paulie at Can I Get a P? Who said it's an interesting to see a snapshot of the scene where the scene is with every release. I remember the first year UHC went hazy and people freaked. Then of course there's the long term ones like Fuller's Vintage and JW Lee's Harvest.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which are annual releases, but they don't get that hype.
No,
I don't like to use the word hype. in association with
No,
Unhuman
but
Cannibal.
but
and that's because, and we'll come on to it later. Unhuman Cannibal has a really special place in my
definitely
heart as a beer release.
But it's part of your. It's been a major part of your journey.
It has been, yeah.
From Cannonball onwards, it's been a major part of your journey. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not really sure I actually spot annual releases. So much as Ruth at Beer Fairy said, I'm always unsure on the difference between an annual release and a yearly seasonal. More traditional breweries have been bringing out the same summer, winter, Christmas beers for years. Rarely do you get any fanfare. Some beers are worth celebrating, but all too often there seems to be a big party to celebrate the opening of an envelope. I may be getting slightly cynical in my old age. Well, quite possibly. However, I think
she's got a point.
I think there's a good point in there.
Yeah.
Because, love them or loathe them, especially in the winter months, you do get the annual dark releases. A lot of them are cask, a lot of them are beers that most of us will probably think, probably avoid those, but they happen every year. And where's Paulie with his comment about Fuller's Vintage and J.W. Lee's Harvest? People do seek them out when they come out. A lot less fanfare though.
There is, and I mean there were a couple of others commented on here. So Charles Davey at Chuck Davey said about the Strawberry Hells, which is the Camden variant, which is the strawberry flavoured one, obviously. And then Simon Clark at Simon Carbon. Yes, I'm probably in the minority waiting for the annual release of Oscar Blue's Death by Coconut. Well, we're certainly not holding our breath for that one.
Michelle would agree with Simon though. Now that she knows it's whenever she gets around to listening to this, she'll know it's an annual release.
Yeah,
she'll be looking out for it. So thanks, Simon.
Yeah, but I think it's right in what you say, because again, another one that springs to mind is Shepherd Neame bring out their Christmas beer. That there's no there's a little bit of fanfare around that in the industry.
There's a lot less.
It's the beers out.
Yeah,
but I think maybe the difference is that something like Unhuman Cannonball, and also you could probably say Bloody Hell as well with that, are annual releases because they're released at the time when the ingredients are at their absolute best.
Yes.
So what Beavertown and Magic Rock are trying to do is to put those beers out when their ingredients are at the best that you can possibly taste them in a beer.
Yeah, because this is the latest that the Cannonball Run has come out.
This is a very late release for Cannonball, yeah.
This was, in my head, it's always been April.
Early late April. Yeah.
So it's this is they've obviously it was either quantity or they weren't happy with the harvest, whatever it was. This is 5 to 6 weeks later than it's been in the past sometimes. And that's the same with the blood red oranges, I presume as well. That are used by Beavertown for the Bloody Hell.
And assuming, obviously, what with the advent of supermarkets being able to sell ingredients all year round, you can get hold of blood red oranges all year.
Yeah.
But assuming the ones that they want to use are ones that have been freshly grown for a particular harvest.
Yeah. So there is a bit of difference, but yeah, like I said, I think sometimes an annual release can bypass a lot of people, and that sort of brings me on to a comment that friend of ours, listener of the show, Carl Gunner at KL Gunner. Wouldn't say excited, but look forward to certain annual beers, especially from Adnams, both barrels and advanced through collaboration. Where Carl lives is Adnams country. Mm-hmm. He's got an Adnams shop and he's in Suffolk. But it's the next sentence, which I have to admit is very good. Unless you are in the beer world, most people are unaware of these releases.
That's true.
I mean, that's bang on point, to be fair.
Yeah, and obviously what he said there as well, yeah, there wasn't the fanfare around this year's release of both barrels.
No.
Even though it's a beer that you and I both went to many times last year and loved.
Yeah, but we have ordered again this year.
Yeah.
We did order again this year, but yeah, there was a lot less fanfare. But I think it's a very good point. Unless you're in the beer world, most people are unaware of these releases.
No, I completely agree with that. And I've got to say, it's quite interesting that why people have been making these, obviously quite a lot of comments to us about other annual releases that are available. I am surprised that nobody threw at us pumpkin beers.
I'm so pleased because there's no show for us in that one.
There isn't, is there?
There's no show.
We're never going to do a pumpkin beer show. That's not.
Let's just be clear, and you heard it here.
You heard it here first. Let's just pick up a few more of these comments just while we're finishing our standard Cannonball then. So we've got PK at the Great Cubio. I agree with Miles. I voted yes, but it's essentially on the basis of Unhuman Cannonball. Can't think of any other that excites me and that I can realistically get hold of, i.e. Cantillon. Now that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, there are a number of limited releases from Cantillon.
And Cantillon do yearly releases as well. There's one which I tried to get hold of recently called Narf or Naf. It's a rhubarb infused beer, and that couldn't get hold of that.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of other ones that they do which are only yearly, or when they had their quintessence, so to speak, which is only every 2 years. So yeah, and we know what, like beer merchants and places like that have been trying to limit the amount of trading that goes on. So yeah, but again, it's in a very small world that these releases are known about, isn't it?
It is, and I was listening to a podcast that I've become very fond of recently, 3 Boys, 3 Beers. One of them went to the Quintessence release and was talking about how easy the beers are to get hold of out there and how you can just go to the brewery and buy them. And interesting, was also talking about they ended up in some sort of nightclub where they had bottles of Cantillon in a vending machine as well that you could buy, and they were literally buying bottles of Cantillon from a vending machine and drinking them from the bottle on the dance floor.
God, I'm so glad I haven't been to that place.
But it's interesting. But again, that's another one, going back to Carl's comment. In the beer, you know about that in the beer world. You go outside of that, and you probably wouldn't even know that exists.
Yeah, well, sticking with Cantillon, who I work for, ING, are a Dutch bank, but very much Benelux, so Belgium and Luxembourg as well. And one of my colleagues was on their way back to Belgium for the weekend, and I've always said to them, I said, if you're going back, let me know, pick up a couple of beers. And I said, if you're going past Cantillon. So I said where it was, and it turns out to be 10 minutes from their house, but they never knew it existed.
No.
They never knew that's where the brewery was, because it's such a nondescript building in a fairly nondescript part of Belgium.
Yeah.
Close to where you come in on the Eurostar. So, whereas I think it's a bit of a mecca.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. So while we're talking about that kind of beer, living in the beer world or not, I mean, there's a couple of comments here again that I think sum it up quite nicely. So the chaps at Brew Stories say, let's not forget, for a lot of people, the annual release will be their first.
That was really good
as well.
Because in 2015, I said, "Oh, this is my first Canon, Unhuman or Human Cannonball." You went, "What?"
Because it had been out 2 years previous to that, yeah.
So yeah, it is. It's just because, this is now my 4th, this would be your 6th or whatever.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be coming at this first. So, if Carl was coming over to mine in a couple of weeks' time when I had some of these left, small ifs there.
Yeah, surely, but yeah.
Then this would be his first.
Yeah.
And he probably wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for us doing this and me doing this and him following it on Twitter. So yeah.
And talking to people for who it's going to be their first as well, Men Behaving Badly at MBB Podcast. As it really is our first cycle through the annual releases, it definitely is exciting. That might wear off eventually, but for now it's great, which I think is a great way to look at it. I think we'd probably ask them if they still have that view after they do their version of the show that we're doing tonight.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few people looking forward to them doing their show.
There is, and it's obviously, I just do want to say at this point that there are a few, and it's not happened by mistake, it's kind of happened by design a little bit, that there are a few podcasts doing the Cannonball Run over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
so we're obviously doing this.
Yeah.
Men Behaving Badly are doing it as well, and they've taken up the challenge of doing a can each as well, and Miles and his crew from the Northeast Sipping Forecast are also doing the Cannonball Run as well. So don't just take what might be our slightly biased views towards these beers as we go through them and what we're tasting in them. Make sure you listen to the other podcasters do them as well, because I'm not sure how we're going to finish up this evening. I think we might be a little bit slurry. It will definitely be interesting to see where Men Behaving Badly finish.
Yeah,
on their run.
if anyone's listened to the 10.5 from the Christmas episode,
I think that's a good idea of where they're going to finish. So just to finish this one off, then I think this is quite a good one. So this is John Stanley at JW Stanley 1007. Yes, many of the annual release beers showcase extremes of brewing, hops, ABV, etc. Which while meaning the beer is amazing, it's not necessarily something you want to drink week in, week out. An annual release means we can all enjoy it and then wait patiently for the next release.
very considered comment. I wouldn't necessarily want to have excess. I wouldn't have Unhuman Cannonball in my fridge all the time.
I wouldn't want to. I don't want to be reaching for an 11% triple IPA.
Nor do I reach for a vintage ale every other week or something like that.
It's something that you do look forward to that moment. And I'm going to jump. This seems like the appropriate point for me to jump in with my views on this, because as I've hinted to a couple of times, for me, Unhuman Cannonball is a very, very special event because it coincides with the first one happened 6 months after Mark and I started doing the Beer O'Clock show. So I was probably only a year in to my beer journey. We managed to get hold of some of that first bottle of Unhuman Cannonball, and drinking it was like nothing I'd ever experienced.
I can imagine, especially that soon into your journey as well.
And that first year it was 12% as well, because we're splitting hairs over 1%, but it was a slightly bigger release as well. And shortly after that, I then also got to visit Magic Rock as well, and I discovered Cannonball, and I started to fall in love with pretty much everything that was coming out of Magic Rock. I became a massive fanboy. But for me, there's always been something special about that Unhuman Cannonball release, because you can only get it once a year, and I'm not one of these people, and I do it on purpose as well. I won't buy 6 cans of it because I don't want to be drinking it over and over again. I want to maybe drink it once, twice, maybe 3 times at a push, but then I want to wait to next year, and I want to sample that excitement again.
I liken it to Christmas. Christmas is fabulous. When Christmas was once every month, it was shit.
You'd get bored of it, wouldn't you?
Well, also, there'd be too much pressure. There was a little bit of pressure about getting these kind of annual releases, because even with the bigger capacity, you still want to make sure you get it, and you want to have it quite close to the time it's released. Whereas, if it was all the time, it's just a beer. I mean, and just for context for the listeners, we're recording at Steve's place, and where I am sitting, I can see an old bottle on the window ledge.
That was the last time it was bottled, so that was 2 years ago.
The Unhuman Cannonball sits there, pride of place on the window ledge, so it has definitely got a big place in Steve's heart.
It is, and I've still got, and people might have seen the picture that I put up on Instagram on, if we're assuming the Friday was Cannonball Day, which apparently we are.
We've both agreed.
I put up a picture of, because I've still got all the bottles of the Unhuman Cannonballs. I've also got the 2 bottles of when Bourbon Barrel Bearded Lady was put into bottles, and I've got the bottle of Strongman as well. Which and if people don't know what Strongman is, just wait, because by all accounts it's coming out later on this year.
I'm looking forward to that.
And it is, if it's still the same as it was the first time they released it. It was essentially the same ingredients as Unhuman Cannonball, with the hop style down a little bit, but then put into barrels to age.
Was it basically like a barley wine style?
It is barley wine, yeah. It's a barley wine.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident I have not had that.
It was amazing from what I can remember. A long time back, but so yeah, for me, annual releases are something special, and there aren't a lot of them, but there are probably the 3 that I look for every year, which is Unhuman Cannonball, Bloody Hell, because I do like it, and then the Fuller's Vintage. I do like to get quite excited about.
Same for me, to be honest. The Bloody Hell, I always want to taste on tap rather than have the cans of it.
I think maybe it shines.
I think
a
really
little
shines
bit
on
more
the tap, from the tap. Whereas, because Magic Rock now do have their tap room, I've come to accept that I may not be able to have it necessarily on tap straight away, so I don't necessarily think about it as much. You finish your Cannonball, Steve?
That's because
you finished your beer in a green can, haven't you?
it was exceptionally drinkable.
Despite the fact that you probably did more talking in the last little segment than I did, you still finished the beer before me.
I'm just going to say that, and this, there will be a comment later on in the show that will maybe echo what I'm going to say here, but that is the best I've tasted Cannonball in a long time.
It's tasting absolutely fabulous.
That is the beer that I remember ordering a pint of in the North Bar in Leeds, and sitting there and drinking it and just saying to myself in my head, this is why I love beer. This is what everything about beer is about for me. This is just perfect.
And do you know what this beer still amazes me with is its ABV. I mean, it still comes in at over 7%.
Yep.
Never once has it ever tasted close to that 7% for me.
No, it's just incredibly drinkable. I will say though, as we're both sitting here lovingly caressing the cans.
Yeah, sorry, I actually am on Steve saying that.
It looks a little bit out of place though, doesn't it, when the big cans come out at this time of year?
But I'm still happy that I have to admit, I do wonder why they haven't. If they were going to do 3 500ml cans of their beers, why, as a special release, they don't do a Cannonball?
Once a year, a special 500ml Cannonball
with a similar sort of design to what they're deploying on the other cans. I think that'd be brilliant, because you can still do the same green, because none of them have got the green.
Human Cannonball has.
Not as much though, is it?
No, it's all green.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's green and black.
Oh,
well,
okay.
you'll see it.
I'll see it in a minute, won't I?
Yeah, but and they all use characters from that can.
Yeah,
as well on their labelling.
For me, just that once a year, that would really add to that release.
A
500ml can of Cannonball.
Yeah, and I know they've spoken about. I saw them talking about they were gonna start to rebrand some of their core range to look more like, because they've recently put Phantasma into their core range, which has got that slightly newer style of Magic Rock branding.
Yeah.
And I know they've said they're going to start slowly bringing the other brands in line with that.
That might lend itself to the bigger can then.
Yeah, but I don't know. Do you want 500 mils of Cannonball every time?
No, not every time.
Well, when it tastes that good, I want it every time.
But as part of this release.
So once a year, give me what you could now sell me a 4-pack of 500 mils and brand it all the Cannonball Run.
Yep.
And I would take my money.
Look at the symmetry on the picture. Imagine for a moment that symmetry on the picture.
Yeah. Because you look at all the pictures that are on Twitter at the moment, and
you got the little
people
cannon.
don't know where to put that can to make it look right.
Well, you can't, because you got 3 cans now. To go beside it, whereas before, at least if you had 2, you could put the Cannonball in the middle.
Yeah, because that would work.
Because it's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. So what? I mean, you're just finishing yours. Obviously, I finished mine a few seconds ago. Final thoughts on the Cannonball?
Tasting blinding. Like I say, I think the last time I tasted it this good was when it was on offer in keg at the ale house where we held the Essex bottle share. If we weren't doing the Cannonball Run and you said, I've got nothing else apart from Cannonball in the fridge, you wouldn't exactly catch me crying.
No, I don't think you'd be upset with that, would you? Like so, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed that tonight, and it did.
I mean, that was blinding. It was almost like it almost just washed straight through.
It did evaporate from my glass. Now, taking a step back up again, we're going up to Cannonball's big brother, which is Human Cannonball, double IPA.
Right, so it's got the green and black, but you could just have the pure green and silver.
You could, but you get the silver on the next one.
Yeah, but that's the idea, so you get a progression.
Yeah.
So you've got green and silver in the Cannonball, then you get green and black, and then get silver and black.
Yeah.
So that was sound ideal to me.
Yeah. So on the pour, that's looking fairly. I mean, you can see through it.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit more opaque, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely than the Cannonball. Much more orange in colour.
Yeah.
As well.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So we're back to pint glasses.
Yeah. Well, for the rest of the evening now.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, dank on the nose.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you get that sticky bitterness straight away.
Yeah, it has definitely got a slightly stickier quality to it. No clawing though, but yeah.
I can see initially in that first sip, I can see hints of the comparison to the Neo-Human.
Yeah.
There's some of the same flavourings.
Yeah.
Maybe the bitterness dials it down a little bit in that, but there is that kind of tropical notes going on in the background.
Oh, there's definitely the tropical notes in the background. My initial thoughts are, because I think I've probably been a bigger fan of Human Cannibal than you have.
This is where this thing comes in, where I've always referred to it as the uncomfortable middle child.
Because I think you've always been such a big fan of Cannibal and have had such a love for the Unhuman Cannibal release that you never knew where to pitch the Human Cannibal. I think I always had a bit more of a feel for it. And right now, I think that's tasting fantastic, just on that initial sup.
I mean, yeah, I completely agree. This is probably the first time that Human Cannibal has made me go, hang on a minute, I can see what all the fuss is about.
Yeah.
Because that was incredible.
So we've gone from just an India Pale Ale at 7% plus to a double IPA at 9% plus. Their pitching is a lot different to other breweries, isn't it?
Yeah.
So effectively their go-to India Pale Ale is already plus 7%.
Well, yeah,
and if I go back to my early drinking days and someone says, "Oh, what are you drinking last night?" I was drinking Stella. They go,
"Yeah, sharp intake of breath."
Oh, yeah, that's over 5%, Martin. What were you thinking of? And now I'm drinking Cannonball, which is the lowest strength beer I'm having tonight at 7%.
But it's interesting that Cannonball at 7.4 is an India Pale Ale, and Halcyon at 7.4% is an Imperial India Pale Ale.
That's what I'm saying. It's a massive difference between how people pitch.
And it's like, and again, if you take what Thornbridge did with Jaipur when they put out Jaipur 10, it was essentially double Jaipur. This isn't double Cannonball.
No,
because if you're gonna have double Cannonball, you're at 15%.
Yeah, this is just another couple of percent.
Yeah. But for all intents and purposes,
it's 1.8%.
Yeah, it's so this is, this is from Magic Rock's blog that they put out every year when they release these three beers. So this is Cannonball's big brother. We used more malt, more hops, and more magical conjuring to crank up the flavour of our explosive IPA. Cannonball. Get your taste buds ready for massive pine and candied orange aromas combined with bittersweet grapefruit and mango. Flavours all complemented by deeply composed, satisfying malty base. Ever wonder what it feels like to be shot out of a cannon? Here's what it tastes like. So I can't disagree with that. That the maltiness is there.
It's definitely a malty.
It adds that kind of biscuit earthiness.
Do you think there's a more malty backbone to this one than Cannonball? I would say there is.
Yeah, Cannonball was crisp and clean, and that was all about the hops. This is bringing more into it, and it's bringing more.
Yeah, they haven't just dialed up the hops.
Yeah,
and the ABV, have they? They've added a bit of everything here.
Yeah,
just to keep that balance going as we go through it.
Absolutely,
it's a good start to it.
It is a good start to it. So while we work our way through that, let's get into some news.
Ooh, do we have news?
There is many points of news this week. So starting off the news this week, let's talk about Peakender.
Oh, what's happening there?
We are appearing live podcasting experience at Peakender. We also have a warm-up act. Adrian Tierney Jones is on before us. So I'm loving that he's our warm-up act.
But he's not signing any autographs while we're on.
Let's hope not. Let's hope he waits until after.
Yeah.
So we're going to be on, I think we're on about 1 o'clock on Saturday. You're going to have to get onto a ticket link for this event as well. So
I presume that's just for numbers.
It's just to manage the numbers, so there's no additional cost to it. If you've already got a ticket to Peakender, you'll be able to get a ticket to come and see us do a live podcast. It's as simple as that. We're going to try and make it as interactive as we possibly can, because that's what we do. We'll do some stuff on Twitter beforehand, we'll do some reading out, we'll do questions from the audience. We're going to be joined on stage by a couple of people from Thornbridge as well to help us through our chosen subject matter,
which is
as well, which is why Jaipur is the most important beer in the UK right now.
Oh, what a terrible question for me to have to ask.
But
I have a Jaipur in my hand while I ask that.
I think we may have Jaipurs in a hand. We just felt as though that's kind of the obvious discussion, really, to have, because Jaipur does have a very special history in the UK craft beer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
scene.
And again, we will go into it more nearer the time anyway. And it definitely, a bit like your Cannonball, Jaipur is definitely very special for me.
I think it is for a lot of people as well. So hopefully, if all of the technical gods work in our favour, we'll be recording that as well. So if you can't make it to Peakender, you'll be able to hear it, because we will put it out as a
the
show.
plan is definitely to record it, but I'm really looking forward to doing the podcast, hopefully seeing some old faces, meeting some new faces, and then just enjoying the Peakender Festival. It sounds fantastic.
Absolutely, and loads. We're really grateful to Thornbridge as well for inviting us to come and do a live podcast.
And have a look at the website, because there's plenty of breweries joining them there.
Absolutely,
it's well worth a visit.
Not to mention maybe slightly shitting one as well, about doing a live podcast in front of a tent
of live people.
Yeah, a tent full of people. So the next one is this is an event, again, if you're in the West Midlands, and this is something that happened across purely by accident when I was at Twisted Barrel a couple of weeks back. So this is, and this very much fits in to craft beer at the moment, so bear with me on this one. This is the Whiskered West Midlands Beard Club and the Debonair Moustache Club present Mind the Beard, which is an event for charity. So this is all in aid of Mind. It's taking place at Twisted Barrel Brewery on the 23rd of June from midday until 7 o'clock. There's going to be a beard and moustache competition, loads of different categories. There's going to be live music, all the beers, raffle, all that sort of thing. If you're interested in getting involved in that and going along and seeing what's going on, you don't have to have a beard to go to the event. Let's just say that.
Okay, so you can be beard neutral.
You can be beard neutral, but it's great that Twisted Barrel are supporting.
Anything to do with the charity, but they're talking about their Mind is well worth supporting.
Absolutely. So we'll put a link, because it's there's no website. It's a Facebook page, so we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
I'm just glad you didn't have to read that out at the end of the show.
I know it's already beginning to feel like it's getting a bit difficult, just as we're starting the Human Cannonball, as we go into what may be the most discussed point in this week's news, dependent on what happens between us recording this evening
and being released,
and this show going out in 48 hours time.
So it's a bit like, have I got news for you, really?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Now, we did play around with the idea of recording 2 segments of this and then editing in whichever one is most relevant, but we'll just go with it as is. So a couple of weeks back, so this was on the 15th of May, Beaver Town announced they put a blog out called The Road to Beaver Weld, which was essentially talking about their growth from where they started in Dukesborough and Kew to where they are now at Tottenham, and then talking about where they want to go next. And they spoke about a vision for Beaver Weld being a large-scale production facility and visitor experience designed and built by us for you, the drinker, aiming to be one of the world's best beer brewing experiences within the City of London. Timescales are a little fluid. Initial projections give us a moving date of summer 2019, and as part of the transition, they're moving their contract arrangements from Redchurch and moving them to Brouwerij de Brabander in Belgium. So basically, they're taking their contract brewing to Belgium, who are going to brew Gamma Ray neck oil for them to the exact specifications that they're brewed at Redchurch at the moment, using the exact ingredients. So that was the announcement that Beaver Town put out.
So that was the light to the fuse.
Yes, which for all intents and purposes, quite a few people instantly made the connection and said, is it going to be a bit like what Stone have done in Berlin? I.e., you're going to take over this massive facility, you're going to make it a must-go-to place where you can see the brewery and all that. And I think Beaver Town responded and said, yes, that's kind of the vision, is what...
Which makes sense, because
that's got.
When they first said that, that's exactly what I had in my head.
Now, within 24 hours, Boke and Bailey put out a blog I can't remember the title of the blog right now, but we'll link to it in the show notes, that basically said, here are some of the signs you should look for when a brewery is about to sell out. And they essentially referenced Beavertown in that, saying, and it was things like, your beers go into supermarkets, you start playing down rumours, you're looking for major upscaling, da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, it's fair to say they got torn apart by certain elements of the beer community online for that post, who were like, no, you've got it wrong, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And in their defence, they were like, it's our opinion. We've used Beavertown as the example, but you could apply that to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, they never said it was happening.
Yeah.
Just to be clear to them, and to be fair to them, they never said it was actually happening.
No, it was just them doing a bit of crystal ball gazing.
Yeah, and
maybe.
Well, they were saying, in the past, so and so has done A, B, and C, and it happened to equal D, and vice versa. And they used Beavertown as a good example. I mean, and it was on point at the time.
It was. And then about a week ago, rumours started to... Well, it wasn't even a week ago. It was just before the bank holiday weekend, wasn't it? So it was like late Thursday,
yeah,
Friday?
from when we're recording, it's in the last 5 days.
Yeah. A article appeared that apparently Heineken were interested in buying 49% of Beavertown.
Yeah, so basically having a similar sort of deal they've got with Brixton.
Yeah.
Is what the rumour started coming out, and that rumour's been quoted in, I think, Morning Advertiser, The Times, The Guardian.
Yeah.
Nothing from Beavertown.
No.
To be fair. So there's been nothing from Beavertown to say one way or the other. And I think there was also a mergers and acquisitions paper or publication that quoted it as well.
But again, if you go back to that Boak and Bailey post, that's what they said would happen. The rumours would come out and the brewery would remain silent.
Yeah. And they would have no choice either.
Yeah.
If there is a merger...
If they're in a legal... Yeah.
If there's a merger and acquisition going through, you cannot start putting stuff in the public domain.
Yeah.
That can't happen. Everything has to be completely by the book. Beavertown may not have shareholders, but Heineken certainly do. So you can't be having things just going out into the open there, because then it's got disclosure, public-private information. It's a whole minefield. You can't be mucking around with that kind of rubbish.
So where we stand right now, as we record, a lot of people have tried to play down these rumours to say they're just rumours, you should ignore them until an announcement's actually made. What's your gut feel on this? Do you think this is a done deal? Do you think...
I don't know if it's a done deal, but I've always thought that they were the next big one.
I knew you was going to start rubbing this in. Okay, let's go back 18 months or so to a show that we did where we were talking about who's next, wasn't it? Essentially, who's going to be the next brewery that are going to sell out. And I think
I said at the time about Beavertown, but they were going to... I think I actually said at the time that they hadn't gone into supermarkets at that point, and they would. They have. And I just was convinced that they are the perfect buyout model. It may not happen, but for me, there is no one better to buy out if you're talking about wanting something attached to London as well.
True. I can't disagree with you. I mean...
And like I said that 18 months ago, and I said a bit about the cat, about supermarkets. Yeah. They've gone into the supermarket. There's been so much stuff coming out that I think Beavertown would have to have something really secret up their sleeves to turn around and say, no, it's not that.
No, we've just been trolling you all.
Yeah. In which case, fair play to them.
Okay, so let's say, because as these things always happen, the day after we record, shit happens.
Yeah, if it happens
so
in
when,
the next
when,
12
when
hours,
this happens tomorrow,
pissed off.
When this happens tomorrow and it's announced that Heineken are buying 49% of Beavertown, is that going to change your view on Beavertown in any way?
Didn't change my opinion on Lagunitas.
Did it change your opinion on Camden?
Nope, didn't change my opinion in the meantime.
And I'm just going to say, I've mentioned Camden recently. For the first time in a long time, I had Camden Hells from a can. and it tasted better than I can ever remember Camden Hell's tasting.
Well, do you know what? I think off the back of this whole chat about Beaver Town, a few people were talking about that, because there was a few comments going back and forth about beers and breweries and the takeovers and what had happened and not. For me, I think I said it before as well, Camden Hells and Camden Pale Ale turning up at pubs in the city, it's godsend for me.
It's not a bad thing, is it?
No, 4% Pale Ale, which I actually like, which I don't then have to resort to something else. Happy with that.
Is it? I mean, let's make a comparison. Is it any worse than what Brewdog have done in terms of having Punk IPA in Green King pubs, Punk IPA in Wetherspoons? They've essentially sold out without actually selling it.
Oh yeah, I think again, I think a few people made the same point. They've done it in a completely different way. Brewdog are probably they are the most mainstream craft brew in the UK. They still have their punk, they still have the term craft, but a lot of people I know about Brewdog without knowing about craft, the beer bubble, the world we socialise in, the world where we podcast to. So no, it's probably not much different at all. I have no problem with it at all. I actually have more of a problem with them brewing their beer elsewhere.
Beaver Town brewing their beer elsewhere. But that's only a short term thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but they've been doing it at Red Church. I would rather if they're going to be.
And this is the Red Church facility that's, for all intents and purposes, in Harlow, isn't it?
So that's definitely not London.
Yeah. No matter how much they.
Yeah. Well, the fact that
Harlonians want it to be London.
Yeah.
And
the fact that you have a London stands there, which is a stone's throw away from Harlow.
Yeah.
It's not London.
Yeah.
No, I would, if they can find a way where they can get all their brewing back into London and create a stone kind of cathedral to beer, I'm all over it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I've in the past, probably in the past 2 years now, I've moved from a point where I'm like, you know what, I don't actually care who owns a brewery, as long as the beer still tastes good.
Yeah,
and that's all that matters to me.
The only thing I would say is if it got to that point where we started to then limit the opportunities for other people to come into the market.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, based on the theme of tonight's show, somebody's about to throw at me, what if Heineken bought Magic Rock? You know what? Good for Rich, because he's spent probably half his life building this brewery and this brand to be what it is. And if as long as once a year I see Unhuman Cannonball, and as long as Cannonball continues to taste as good as it's tasted tonight, I'm not bothered.
I'll go with it.
I don't see it would actually happen, because I think, particularly in Magic Rock's case, they're quite on top of their own capacity and their own destiny. But clearly, Beaver Town have a bigger destiny that they want to fulfil.
Yeah, but I also think that's also geography as well. I think if you're outside London, it's probably just to the big breweries and the buyout arms of people like AB InBev, their ZX Ventures. Outside of London, probably just looks less attractive.
Yeah, possibly.
For us, they're very attractive places to go to, very attractive beers to drink. Whereas London is the capital. London has a whole load of people which come in and out the whole time. If you suddenly have a foothold in that market, you can take those beers elsewhere outside of the UK as well, and people will know about them.
That's true.
Oh, I had that when I was in London. Oh, look, it's turned up in so-and-so.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it as well. So I think those breweries which are focusing outside of the London metropolis are probably less at threat.
Yeah, which is essentially, I suppose, again, bringing it back to, a brewery, Brewdog have essentially done that, haven't they? They've put bars everywhere, and they're now beginning to expand and have breweries in other countries as well that are brewing Brewdog products.
But ultimately, they're still associated with being a Scottish brewer.
Yeah.
And so maybe that sort of provided a little bit of a shield for them.
Possibly, yeah. So while we're talking Brewdog, there was news that finally this venue that they have in Islington, which has gone through a number of
iterations,
as to what it is now going to be reopened again, but it's going to have home brewing equipment on site as well, which will allow customers to come in and brew their own beer. So Brewdog Angel will be opening on Friday the 1st of June, and it will contain 4 20-litre homebrew kits, which customers can use while drinking a range of beers from the bar's 14 taps. Okay, first of all, not sure it's a great idea to encourage drinking and brewing
at the same time.
It will also be offering a full Brewdog pizza menu and coffee from Deer Green.
I didn't know Brewdog did the pizza menu.
No, I didn't. So maybe, again, something new that they're looking at. They're going to release details on how to book a brew day. But it's interesting that they finally seem to have found a purpose for this venue. I
don't get the purpose though. It's trying to be a lot of everything, isn't it? Drink your beers, eat your pizza, and brew your own beer.
Do we think is it gonna?
It's an
is it gonna become something else again?
I don't see how. I mean, the brew pub at Tower Hill, I get that because where it is, I've still got to go, but I know the building. I think that's going to attract a lot of people.
Pictures I've seen of it are that it's constantly rammed.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a real go-to destination. I mean, especially where it is, it's just, I would say, just on that perimeter of the city. So you've got a 5-minute walk to Tower Hill, you're a 10-minute walk to the Bank of England and to Bank Station. It's pretty much the perfect spot for what they're trying to go for, which means they have weekdays, weeknights and weekends pretty much sewn up. That one I just don't understand. Why not just open a Brewdog bar?
I think they've always struggled to get a licence for just a bar, which is possibly why they've kept changing what it is.
Then give it up. There are so many other venues in London, and but I don't understand why they struggle to get them unless there's been objections from other breweries. Most people just want to go to Brewdog and drink a beer.
Yeah. So I suppose only time will tell with that one. Right, last couple of bits on the news. Fuller's have announced that they've just installed a new pilot brewery. Well, they're in the process of installing a pilot brewery at their site in Chiswick.
What? Where they have all that spare space? Where do they put that?
It's only a small couple of tanks.
But they haven't really got much.
To the point where I think John Keeling said he was going to come out of retirement just to play on the pilot kit.
He can't help himself, can he?
No, he can't. But it'll be interesting to see what beers Fuller's do bring out.
I reckon there'll be a lot of the. I reckon they'll do a little bit of work with Dark Star on those, and also that Fuller's and Friends thing. I think there's
and maybe exclusive releases just into their own pub on that corner.
What, the Morton Arms?
Yeah, or whatever, because it's 2 pubs. Isn't it? Yeah.
The Morton Arms is always the name I remember because that's the one directly on the corner. Never remember the second name.
Yeah. So. That's the news. The human cannonball is almost gone, mate.
Yeah.
We've been smashing our way through this.
I'm loving it.
What are you thinking on it?
Absolutely bloody delicious. I reckon for me, this is, like I said, I think I've always enjoyed this a bit more than you, but I'm just getting everything I like about that West Coast style of IPA.
I'm getting a lot more of it this year. I'm getting... What I am getting... I'm getting a real dankness to it. There's a stickiness there. There's that caramel piney stickiness to it, and then it is bitter from beginning to end.
Yeah. Oh,
there is no doubt about
all the way through. I think that little bit you read out from the blog about the malt bill, that definitely comes through. It's definitely got more of that going on than with the original Cannonball. I'm just finding it so drinkable. So whereas the Neo, as it got towards the bottom of the glass and it warmed up a little bit, I was thinking, okay, could I do a second one? I might say a half.
Yeah.
If someone said, "Oh, do you want a pint of this or another 500?" Yeah, I'll have a big glass of it again.
I would probably actually go for a big glass of this again.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd be quite happy to
superbly drinkable
maybe
beer.
Consider a third.
And I think you're right about that bitterness going all the way through.
It is literally from the first moment it passes your lips, it washes over you. It's there. It's all around your mouth, and then you get it on the finish.
Yeah,
as well.
So it's not just at the back end.
No,
all the way through.
Yeah,
and it's all, right now. I've just got that bitterness.
Yeah, and I've no more words And we've still one more beer to do.
Exactly. So,
and another poll.
Why did we do this?
To get through, yes, God knows.
You
So,
lucky listeners.
yeah, let's get into this then.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
So the second question we asked was, well, it was actually the first question we asked, but we thought it was better this way round. With festival season well underway, what are your thoughts on all-in tickets? So this was on the back of a couple of festivals happening. We've been off air. Fuller's announcing that they were doing this craft beer London Brewers Alliance Festival, which is all in. So we asked what were people's views on this. So we had 282 votes. And I just will say at this point as well that this one, first time I've seen this in a while, that the votes were fluctuating. And it was over the 24 hours. Yeah, it was going in both directions. In the end, it was literally a 5% swing that won this. So Love 'Em was 56%, Not For Me was 44%. So, like I say, not a lot in it in terms of what people are saying. So let's get into some of the love the all-in tickets comments. So Owen Frankish at Evil Brainfish said, "Love them when I get there, but make it much harder for me to justify stumping up the cash in advance. Although I'd probably spend the same in the end."
See, I never know whether I would spend the same in the end. That's an interesting point from Evil Brainfish, which I have to admit, fantastic.
Yeah.
Twitter handle.
So let's try and put that into context then. So, using the festival that we know and love, Indie Man, you're going to pay 20 quid to get into a session.
Yep.
What are you then likely to spend in that session, do you think?
Well, when we were there last time queuing up, what did they come round and take for us for tokens?
It was, 20 quid's worth of tokens?
Yeah.
We got 12 tokens for 20 quid?
I didn't top up much more after that, I have to admit.
So, let's be conservative. You spent 50 quid.
Yeah.
For a session at Indie Man. So the only thing that I can make a comparison to is the Beaver Beaver X, which is £65 for a session.
I think the first one was 50, wasn't it?
Yeah, but this year's one,
Yep, 65.
with booking fee.
Yep.
As well. So that's already possibly around 20 quid more, and you're only getting 100ml pours.
Yep. So
whereas at Indie Man you're getting a third.
The starting point is a third.
Yeah.
So it's a third. Oh, the last time we went it was a third, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was either one. Was it one token or two tokens to spend on a third? So yeah, you basically got a third. And I have to admit, I was a bit annoyed about the thirds.
You were upset about thirds, yeah.
Because the glass only lent itself to having a third.
Yeah, you don't like a third pour.
I don't like to be limited.
You like to have the option to do a bit more.
Yeah,
if you need.
Well, say this year, Cloudwater, if they decide to have a few of their small beers, I might want 2/3 of that.
I don't want to be using one of my tokens on a 2.9% beer.
No, but I might want one. So why should I have to have just 1/3?
Yes, that's a good point.
But anyway, that's going off. But it's an interesting thing. And also, I mean, for us, we travel.
Yes, you've got your travel costs to add into that,
and the travel definitely adds something for us when we go to Indie Man.
Yeah. So let's look at a couple of the other love them comments as well. So John at Beer in the Suburb said, "They're great. Would rather pay a lump sum in advance and know I can have anything I like, rather than fiddle with tokens or moan about how much a tiny pour of rare beer costs." It seems like he was tapping into what you were saying there. I went to Craft Beer Rising last year, 20 quid entry, and probably spent as much as that as an all-in ticket anyway. So, it's a tough one, isn't it?
I think let's read out a few more because I've got quite a lot to say.
Okay, and then Ian B at Mr_Ian_B. Love all-in festivals. No faffing around with tokens. More willing to try something I wouldn't normally try, as if I have to pour it. I've not lost out, and no unused tokens at the end. Much less hassle. Did a blog post about my thoughts, and we'll include a link to that in the show notes. But that was also echoed by Kaylee at Kaylee Pie, Ross at All Doom and Gloom, Jamie H at Merchant of Shite as well. So it's interesting that a lot of people are saying, you know what, it's the convenience factor. I've paid, I've got my glass, and I just go around and say, I'll have some of that, I'll have some of that, I'll have some of that, I'll have some of that.
I get that.
But
carry on.
No. But let's have your view at this point. But
if I'm going to a beer festival on my own, which I very rarely do, then an all-in ticket would probably work. But I find all-in tickets are the most unsociable aspect of a beer festival, because all-in tickets are generally 100ml pours or less, with the exception being the upcoming Fuller's London Brewers Alliance, which is 200 and 100s depending on strength.
Yeah.
But it's a 100 usually or less. I think the American Craft Beer Festival is like 30 millilitres. I mean, that's fucking evaporated by the time it's got to my nose.
That's nothing, is it? That's not even a shot of beer. Well, it's just over a shot.
As long as you only have a single.
Yeah.
But it's unsociable. I've done the London Craft Beer Festival 3 different times, and everyone's just going off at different times because you've only got 100 millilitres, so you go off.
We found that first time we went. Yeah. We went as a group, and we never spent any time with each other because we were all off getting a beer.
Fucking annoys the hell out of me. It's like going to a greyhound racing where you have to bet every 15 minutes. So you bet, you come back, you bet, you come back. You're always darting off. There's no sociability about it unless you're all going for the same beer at the same time all the time. And that's, for me, just isn't that sociable, because that just doesn't happen. If I go with Michelle, we will want 8 different beers and we will drink at a different pace. Yeah. There's no coming back to a table and say, right, you've got a third, I've got 2/3, or vice versa. Let's take a moment. We don't have to go and drink now because I can go and pay for it when I want to. If I've paid for it, I'm thinking, all right, I've spent £50 on a ticket, I need to go and drink it. No, it just annoys the hell out of me. I get why the organisers do it, and I completely understand why people who want to try new beers do it. I don't go to beer festivals just to try new beers.
That's not the only thing, is it? Yeah.
No, for me it's the social aspect, and I do not get all-in tickets as the social aspect. Okay.
And that brings us quite nicely on to the not for me comments as well, because we obviously did have quite a few of these. So first up, we've got the Flying Welshman at Bix_Barton_SW6, and also a few others mentioned this as well. So Pub Kermagudgeon. Oh dear, started. At Old Mudgy, John Moore at The Beer Idiot, and Crafty Mama at Becky Boogaloo. I will come back to Crafty Mama's comment as well, because it was a particularly pertinent one. Generally, no. Depends on the pour, size, cost or range. Can lead to rushed, excessive drinking as punters try to get their money's worth. Prefer to be able to decide myself how much I want once in. Crafty Mama at Becky Boogaloo added to that. Also, my Yorkshireness comes out and I have to get what I spent on the ticket. So what do you think about that one? I mean, that's quite an interesting one, because a lot of people were saying that once you've paid that money, you do feel as though you've got to get your money's worth. I can't disagree.
Even to a certain extent with IndieBound with the tokens, and you sort of alluded to it when we were talking about it, but I'm not going to have a third. I'm not going to have a third of a 3%. Well, no, of course you can't. I mean,
you want to be able to choose.
I can go. I can go in ahead even with tokens, when they do the set price per third. Okay, I'm going to have a dipper. I'm going to go with an MP stout. I'm not having a 3%. That's not worth it. I can have 11%. It doesn't really help. But the tokens one I can go with, because I find it a very simple way of working, provided I'm still getting a decent measure.
Yeah, but it's nice to have that choice of, well, I'll pay 1 token for a third, or I'll pay 2 tokens for 2/3.
Provided they provide you with a glass which holds 2/3.
Accepts that. Simon Clark at Simon Calm said, it's not for me, and it encourages irresponsible drinking. I've never been to an event with this kind of ticketing, and I doubt I ever will.
And I think Simon came to the Crimbo Court, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
And me and him were talking about it, and yeah, he's very firmly in that camp when we were talking about it.
Yep. And that's backed up by this comment as well. This is from Guy Miller at BrewGuy_. Not for me. We spend millions of pounds in the beer industry on drinking in moderation. If I could open a pub with 20 quid, all you can drink 4% beer in an hour, I won't get a licence. I'll be in the papers and pub will be shut down as irresponsible. Yet these festivals are doing the same with craft high ABV. What do you think on that one?
It's definitely a different perspective, I have to admit. And one which I haven't really thought of. We've met Guy. I'm not sure you can compare a pub to a one-off festival either.
No, I don't think. I would never expect to go into a pub and be able to.
A pub can be open 365 days a year.
Drink my body weight for a 20 quid entry fee.
Yeah. But festivals do it for 2 or 3 days, maybe even just a day sometimes. But, you know, although he's taken the point to an extreme, the bit about he wouldn't get a licence is probably the bit here. If he was opening up just on the high street, or even try and do a pop-up bar, let's say he's trying to do a pop-up bar, pop-up shop, where you just pay one entrance and you can have what you like, probably wouldn't get a licence. No,
you wouldn't. You wouldn't. And this is, the final one on this is an interesting one, and it's one that I can relate to as well. This is from the Littlest Homebrew at Littlest Homebrew. Having experienced my first and I think one of the best at the Mikkeller Beer Celebration in Copenhagen, it's a big fat no from me. Queues get far too big for the popular stuff and too much pressure to down as much as possible to get your money's worth. Pay per beer all of the way. And I think that's... I know it's well documented that I went to Copenhagen and lasted 45 minutes in one of the sessions because I felt as though I went out of the traps fast, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good point. It's like, you've paid all that money, I want to get my money's worth out of this. I don't want to have to spend all of my time in this session queuing up. So what am I going to drink that's going to get me what I feel is going to be my money's worth?
And I hate queuing. Queuing is one of my pet hates.
Yeah.
In the city of London, people will queue for sandwiches for 15 minutes out of their 45-minute lunch break. But it's like, what the fuck are you doing? How good is that sandwich going to be?
Just make it at home.
Well, make it in your bloody office.
Yeah.
Go to Tesco, buy an loaf of bread and some cheese slices. But seriously, why are you queuing? I'm going to be much more biased about these kind of festivals, I have to admit, than about the New England IPA. I'm definitely on the I'd rather choose my drink, choose my time, choose how I want to maybe say you want to have half an hour.
Yeah.
Out. If you've got an all-in ticket, can I afford to have half an hour out?
No, you can't.
No.
I
spent my bloody money.
Paid your money, yeah. So, before we move on to the last point of this discussion,
it's the crescendo.
It's time. And there were people that doubted we'd be able to do all of this in 2 hours.
Ye of little faith.
Yeah, do they not even know us?
# we are professionals.
We are cannonballing professional cannonballing. That's the hashtag I've been using. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is this seems much lighter in colour than the human cannonball.
It is. Very good carbonation.
There's a good nose on that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot more citrus coming off of that.
Waves of it. I mean, literally waves of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, now it's in the glass, in appearance-wise, it's very similar to human.
It's got the orange hue.
There's more hazy. There's a bit more haze to it.
Yeah.
But you'd probably expect that from 11% worth of hops.
That nose.
Cheers.
Let's get into this.
Unhuman Cannibal. Here we go. Okay, first thing, it's a lot crisper than human. Again,
you'd expect that.
And again, looking back on the run, it again does that thing to me in terms of human Cannonball was Cannonball was really, really crisp.
Yeah.
This is really, really crisp. Human was dank as fuck. It was dank and sticky and everything that you want from a West Coast IPA. This is completely different.
What this is, though, it advertises the alcohol, I think, a bit more.
You get a bit more of the burn on the finish, don't you?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have said, I'm going to leave it a few weeks because they're always best 3 or 4 weeks after, or whatever.
And to be fair, there might well be, but the only way you know that is if you had them straight away.
That's it. Yeah.
But I think you definitely get a bit more of that. I don't mind that. It's 11.2%.
I expect that.
I actually want it to tell me there's some alcohol.
Yeah. I want this beer to be the beer that says, you know what, drink me, and then go home.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately for you, you're home.
Well, fortunately. Yeah,
or unfortunately, because you might just open the fridge and go, yes,
I've got another one.
I'm going to go full Steve Austin now.
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's just finish off the conversation about the all-in tickets, and then
you haven't said what your feeling is. I've obviously advertised mine now.
I'm not a fan. I'm really not. I had that. Like I say, I had that one experience in Copenhagen where I did feel as though I had to drink my money's worth, and I'm possibly one of these people that is put off by the amount up front. So let's take for instance the Beaver Town Bash this year, which I know we've mentioned before. It's £65 for the ticket. To me, that feels like a lot of money to pay for a beer festival.
Well, it is, and I bought a ticket. I bought 2 tickets for the Craft Beer Rising in February, quite some months in advance, and then found out I had the mother of all engineering works, which would have meant more time travelling than more time at the festival. So I advertised on Twitter they were available for sale. Fortunately, someone bought them at face value. I said, look, you can have them a bit cheaper. He said, no, I'll pay the face value. So very lucky in that respect. So what happens if I buy 2 £65 Beaver X tickets? So that's 130 quid. And then for whatever reason, family emergency, I can't go. Do I get that money back? Whereas if I just buy
you can sell them to someone, you can.
Yeah, but if it's an emergency, I may not have time.
Yeah. Or
the inclination. But if I just buy a ticket, which is an entrance fee, I'll spend a lot less.
Yeah, and let's say here right now, we're not knocking these festivals.
No, I am.
Because that's what they've done.
No, I am.
That's what
I am. I'm not a fan of all-in tickets. No, I am knocking them.
Okay.
I'm not a fan. I think I do actually agree with you.
I'm maybe not. If I had the money, maybe I'd be quite happy to spend 65 quid to go to Beaver Town.
What, to have a few 100ml pours? You fancy that queuing up?
In about 4 hours,
yeah.
as well, isn't it? Well, I mean, to counter it, a lot of people were saying, well, for all the queuing that there was last year, that meant that there were a lot of breweries that didn't have any queues, and you could go and try some of those non-hyped breweries. So I suppose a lot of it comes down to that hype and FOMO.
Do they give 200ml pours?
No, they don't. But I think it's a case of a lot of what drives some of this is that, we've got this brewery and this beer will be pouring and you have to try this beer. Rather than just like...
I just want a decent measure.
You know what? We've got a beer festival and we've got 40 breweries and they're all going to be serving great beer. So pay an entry fee and then come pay those breweries for what they're serving.
Yeah, but maybe I want to have something bigger than 100ml.
Yeah, I mean, 100ml pours.
It's the pours.
Pointless.
The fucking pours which annoy me. It's the bottle share. That's what we do, a bottle share. But I don't have to pay for that. I don't have to queue up for it. It's delivered right in front of me. Whereas I have to queue to get 100ml pour. By the time I've finished it, I can go back to the back of the queue and
that's which is what we experienced at the Cast Festival, which was the queues were so big that we bought a beer, we went to the back of the queue, and we drank the beer while in the queue to get our next beer.
Yeah, and what happened?
And we did that 2 or 3 times.
We got pissed.
But we also got fed up with that.
Yeah,
because I don't want to spend my whole time at festivals in a queue. Exactly. I mean, this is one that will rage on and on and on. And as always, we encourage you, our listeners, to get involved in this. So keep talking to us about this. Use the hashtag Hopinions. Get involved in this. The wheels have come off.
Get involved in the discussion.
That's the one. And if you really want to get involved in the discussion, you may very well find yourself. You may very. Did I need the very?
No, you didn't need the very.
in this part of the show.
Let us know. Write it down. Let us know. Write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
So, first up this week, this is from JD at Job John. And this is going back again to... we've got a couple of people going all the way back to the Manchester shows this month.
Are you guys not keeping up?
No, it might be more us not keeping up. Because we should probably make it clear to our listeners now, from this point on, we're now on a strictly 2-week schedule.
Yeah.
Everything... Some of the stuff before now has been a little bit out of sync with that.
Manchester was still April.
No, it was, but the Hop Stuff one we recorded a week before. Our intention is to record the week of release and then have a week off and then the week of release. So that's where we're going to get to. So anyway, so this is JD at Job John at Beer O'Clock Show. Also have similar thoughts about the bar staff at the Smithfield NQ.
It's quite interesting because at the moment there's no love for the bar staff at the Smithfield.
There's not a lot of love for that at
Which
all.
I think it's a real shame because as a pub, I still think it was a really nice pub.
And for Southerners finding the Colonel in Manchester, possibly the best place to go. Men Behaving Badly at MBB Podcast said, finish the Manchester episode of Opinions from Beer O'Clock Show, and the camera discussion in the middle is excellent. A great listen, Ashley. So thanks, Ashley, for your feedback. Interesting how we threw a camera discussion into the middle of a Manchester pub crawl.
Yes, when we were talking about the AGM, wasn't it? Because that came about at the same time.
Always that where I got a bit ragey.
Yeah, bit ranty.
There were a lot of F-bombs there, weren't there? Yeah, okay. Another one, Beers Without Frontiers podcast at Beers_Frontiers. Finished listening to the Behemoth latest Beer O'Clock Show podcast today. Excellent show. Really enjoyed the Manchester segment, having visited some of those venues myself. And the camera rant from Steve was emotional and expletive ridden.
There you go.
So almost. What's the next one, mate? You take that while I drink some more on Human Cannonball.
At Beaver O'Clock Show, a bit late to the story, but has anyone mentioned how the wording of the camera amendment may have been some of the reason it wasn't passed? Having all beer and all pubs sounds to me like it includes shit one, and that's from Jack Target at JT Arget 23. Well,
That's a really interesting...
That's a really good point. I mean, to be honest, I've always thought that some pubs deserve to close. There's a pub in Colchester down the bottom of my road called the Norfolk. Fucking awful pub. Owned by Green King. Shit when they were showing the football. You used to put it in plastic glasses because you were there watching the football. Turn the sound down. I'm glad it's closed. They can bulldoze the place as soon as possible as far as I'm concerned. Some places don't deserve to be open. So yeah, possibly, but I'm not sure that was the main thrust of the camera amendments anyway.
I'm not sure, but
it's a good point.
It's a very good point, and I am. God, I've transcended beyond camera. Honestly, I'm.
When you say you've transcended, you rip up your membership card. It's not the same as transcending.
Well, no, it is because I used my membership to buy me a couple of editions of fanzine from Brewdog. That's transcending.
No, it's not.
Their membership?
No.
Okay. So we were asked a question. This was from Edward Shaw at Dr. Shaw 69, who asked us and Beernomicon. Quick question: in view of what seems to me the spiralling cost of beer and frequency of new releases, especially dippers, £11 some places for the latest Verdant collab, how much is too much for a can of beer?
That's a very good point. I'm always really loath to buy cans and bottles in a pub when there's taps and casks.
Yeah.
And these beers, even on... So released from the brewery, what price were they coming in at?
So Unhuman Cannonball was £7 for 500 mils of an 11% triple IPA.
Which I don't think is too bad. If you say that, so it's 11%, it's that price. If you put that up by another 250 millilitres, that's a bottle of wine, 11%, and you throw another couple of quid in, people will pay that. So I would say that's fairly reasonable.
Yeah, I wouldn't go into double digits for a can.
I would find it really tough do that.
Yeah.
Really tough.
Yeah. And actually thinking about it, I'm pretty sure the price of this has come down since... I mean, the bottles used to be a tenner a bottle of Unhuman Cannonball. You'd pay a tenner for 660 mils.
The bottle may cost more.
Of this,
and
yeah.
also it's more limited as they had less capacity. Didn't
Yeah, yeah. But, I mean, that's a great question. Again, that's one. Listeners, tell us, what's your threshold?
What will you pay?
For a can of beer. So next one, Flying Welshman at Bix Barton SW6. Really enjoyed listening to this on the train today. This is in regard to our last show, which was with Hop Stuff. James from Hop Stuff has a really refreshing attitude to the craft beer scene. Good for positive mental health. Opinions. So thanks for that. That's what we were aiming for with that show.
I really enjoyed our chat with James.
Yeah, well, it was great. And he was really honest with us as well, with everything he spoke about. And again, another one just backing that, just finished off the latest Beer O'Clock show. Great listeners ever, and a very important topic to tackle. We'll be making sure to try out some Hop Stuff beer soon. Great PR. So that was from Beer Frontiers at Beer Frontiers. Mike Maguire at Mike said, UK supermarkets aren't doing enough to keep craft beer stored correctly. Brewers like Oscar Blue spend time making efforts to produce the best product it can for the public. Asda, this is woeful, and this was a picture of a can
I saw that one.
of Dow's IPA, which was sent to us on the 19th of May, out of date on the 3rd of January. I mean, that's terrible.
That was
isn't
awful.
It? That
but I've
is
said that
awful.
about a lot, because we've done supermarkets on the show
many times, more times than we ever needed to.
Yeah, and we've also extolled the virtues of them.
Yeah,
accessibility, train beers, whatever it might be. We've extolled the virtue of them, but so many of them are shit at shelf rotation. It's a fucking basic. I mean, it really is a basic thing about whether it's any sort of consumable. It's shelf rotation. When you stack up from the back. It does not take genius.
They do it with fresh fruit and veg, don't they? So why can't you do it with every other product in the supermarket?
And cans and bottles are easy stack. Like I said, lived above an offer in 12 years. Stacked from the back. Stacked from the back. That was it. That was all. One of the few things. One of the few things which was drummed into me. Stacked from the back.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be an episode of Hopinions without one of these. This is Paul's question of the week. Questions fill my head. Really interesting chats inspired by the conversation about cans and bottles. This week's question: what's your personal preference in the majority of your beers? 330ml bottles, cans, 440ml cans, or other? For me, it would be 440ml every time, but I do like a 500ml can.
I would say for everyday beers, 330s.
Yeah.
Cans fit in, and also 330ml cans fit in the fridge. So your average fridge door has 2 or 3 shelves.
Yeah.
2 of those shelves will do 330 cans. They won't do the bigger cans. They won't do the bigger bottles. They'll definitely do the cans, and I would definitely do the 330 bottles because you can put them better in the cupboard when you install them. Yep. Specials, I'm more than happy to have 440s or 500s, but everyday buying 330s.
440 does seem to be now the standard can size.
Oh yeah, definitely.
From craft breweries, if you're buying online or from specialist shops, that's what you're going to buy.
And I have to admit, it's very hard on a picture which is in the background to spot a 440 versus a 500.
Yeah, yeah. 330 is generally a supermarket fare now, so you know you can go to the supermarket, you can buy like at the weekend I bought a box of Punk IPA for the fridge.
Is that one of the 12 box, wasn't it? 12 cans?
It's a fridge pack.
Yeah.
12 cans of
but how perfect did it fit the fridge?
It slid straight in.
Yeah.
Yeah. These, what we've done tonight, the specials, I want those in 500ml.
But they don't fit.
They don't fit. I don't care that they don't fit. Particularly on Unhuman Cannonball, I'd really like that in a 660ml bomber. Again.
I know you would.
I know, it's never going to happen.
You're talking about general, it don't fit, does it? But again, thank you, Paul, for your question. As if you didn't have any other questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said for me it'd be the 440s. They don't sit very comfortably for me, the 440s a lot of the time.
Mind you, with my fridge, I can get a 440 and a 330 on stacked. So that'll take up one space in the fridge.
Is that in the door though, or on the shelf?
No, on a shelf.
Ah, so I'm thinking about Bazaar.
No, I'm
The door's
thinking,
a bit of an underused
so
space.
I've got a beer shelf. Doors are used. I've got a beer shelf, so I can get 440, 330 on top of each other on a shelf. I can't get a 500. Put a 500 in there, and that's taking up 2 slots.
Yeah.
For me, so it's
a logistics.
I suppose it comes down to what you've got in your fridge space.
While we're on bitter and lingerness,
Yes.
I have something.
Ooh, really?
Yes. You had a barbecue at the weekend, Steve.
I did.
So for your son's 13th birthday, you invited a few select friends and work colleagues, me.
You classing yourself as a work colleague or a select friend?
Both.
Okay.
I drank enough beer for both, to be fair.
I'd put you into one of those categories.
So you had a barbecue at the weekend, came over, and we had a few punk IPAs in the afternoon.
We did.
It was a hot afternoon. We were standing quite close to the barbecue.
I was standing very close
You
to
were
a
practically
very
on
hot
it.
barbecue.
And so it's a brick barbecue. We were standing very close, and I necked 2 or 3 punk IPAs. And as I do, I tap in every beer. And I got a comment from someone who just basically said, "Wow, you must be an investor."
What was the score that you put on it?
I give it a 4, which is why I give a punk IPA.
I scored punk at a 4 as well.
And the reason I give punk a 4 is because I always enjoy it. It has to be. It's a long time since I've had a bad punk IPA.
Yeah.
Long time. I always enjoy it. It's easily accessible, both in the marketplace and to other people. And there's no reason not to give it 1. And I drank 3 in about 35 minutes. I must like it.
It's a good beer.
Yeah. And
good beer.
the assumption that I was an investor.
That's quite poor,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
I was quite peed off with that.
Yeah.
And that stuck in my mind. So I did go back to them and go, no, never been an investor. Probably won't be, because there's enough of what they do that pees me off. A bit like if Ryanair did a crowdfunding thing, I'd go, no, fuck off, I hate Michael Leary. No, but I like the beer. Ryanair, do I like them? No. Do they fly to the right place at the right price? Of course they do. So that's my comparison. But yeah, so they just peed me off a little bit, I have to admit. The assumption I was invested because I gave it a 4.
Yeah, I can understand why you got pissed off, because I'm like, for me, punk is now a 4 when I check it in. And it's a 4 for a number of reasons. I think I've explained this before. Like when I check a beer in, 2.5 is the average.
Yep.
So to hit the average, you've got, your beer has got to be what it says on the tin, and it essentially everything about it stands up to that as well.
Yep.
So that's a 2.5, and then I start working up from there. So some of it becomes about personal taste, some of it becomes about what it does. So, am I enjoying this beer? Yes, that gets another half a mark. How easy is this beer for me to get hold of? That's another half a mark. How smashable is this beer? That's a whole mark.
There you go.
On smashability. And if I can go to any supermarket and buy 12 cans of Punk IPA for 15 quid or less, that's always going to hit a 4 for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's probably never going to get any higher than that.
But it actually really peed me off.
Yeah, I can understand why. And I would have been quite pissed off with that.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So, we're almost at the end of this show.
Yep.
And for everybody that said we wouldn't do these beers only under 2 hours,
we did it.
We managed it. So
come on.
You
go first.
No.
What do you think?
Oh, you put me on the spot before we put, because we did one final poll.
No. Let me know what you think.
Okay. Out of all the beers, hang on. I want one more of this. God, it's a hard one. This is a hard one this year.
So I've got
okay.
So while you're thinking, I've got a real feeling that everything's been upped this year.
It has.
So because they've released an EO, I think everything's gone up by another level.
It has, but what upsets me is that why did it need that to bring Cannonball back to what it was.
Oh, maybe it didn't. Maybe it's just one of those alchemist moments, eureka moments. Just the right time, right place.
Okay, of what I've drunk tonight,
Yep.
Cannonball was the best beer. It was, without a doubt, everything that I loved about what that beer was when I first tried it, and many times since.
So it brought you back.
Yes. And then I really can't. I don't think I can split Unhuman and Human this year. Human was an incredibly bang on West Coast IPA.
Oh, it was tops. Absolute tops.
Unhuman has just taken that to another level.
Yep. I mean, I think we're talking on Untapped of 0.25s here, aren't we?
Yeah. So Cannonball will retain its 5 status because it does. That's just what it scores when I drink it on Untapped.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that I'm going to check these two in twice. One as their normal variant and one as their 2018 variant. Essentially, you're asking me to score between human and unhuman here, aren't you?
No, where does Neo sit?
It still sits where we've got it. Because as we're sat at the table, all of the green and silver beer is on one side of the table, and Neo is all on its own in its multicoloured variant over there. Neo was good. It was a good beer, and it did exactly what it said on the tin. But I will echo what a lot of people have said, that it doesn't belong in the Cannonball Run.
No, it doesn't belong.
The Cannonball Run is Cannonball Human and Unhuman. This is the Cannonball Run here.
Okay, I would say on the run, I'll go Human, then Cannonball, then Unhuman.
In that order?
Yep.
Ah.
I mean, we're talking fine margins here.
Yeah.
I actually loved Human Cannonball this year. Absolutely loved it. Unhuman I thought was tops. Cannonball possibly suffers from just being a beer which I just expect to be good every time.
Yeah.
Neo, yes, it does sit to the side.
Surprisingly good.
But brilliant.
Yeah.
Better than good, it's brilliant. It's the best New England style beer. Forget about IPA, double IPA, triple IPA. It is the best New England IPA or New England style beer I've had.
I'd agree with that. On this side, I've enjoyed Human more than I've ever enjoyed it before.
Yeah.
But it would still sit third.
I'm not surprised. See, that would not surprise me.
Cannonball first, Unhuman second, Human third.
But would you agree that this year it's gone up a little?
Yeah, that they've completely pushed it up again.
I think these have all been brilliant.
And let's go back to
Absolutely
that
brilliant.
very first poll in terms of this is what makes annual releases so special.
Yeah.
Because you can only do this once a year.
Yeah. All right,
If we could do this every month, it'd become
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy this is only once every so often.
Yeah.
It's working.
So we did ask that question.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
Which beer was the highlight for you this year? And we had 201 people voted, and we gave them all 4 options. Unsurprisingly, 39% of the votes went to Neo Human, 25% went to Human, and then there was a split 18% between Cannonball and Unhuman. Cannonball as well. And I've got one comment from each beer
Okay.
to read out right now. So first up, Mark Johnson at Mark N. Johnson, and this was on the Cannonball front. From Keg, the regular Trump tool. For my taste, the other two needed a few weeks, so I've left my cans for now. Neo tasted as you'd expected, my opinions, but no idea why the others in the comments are waiting so long to drink their beers. So Mark went for Cannonball as being, from a keg point of view, that was a beer that tasted amazing. The Littlest Homebrew at Littlest Homebrew said Neo because it's one of the very few not New England. Yeah, New England. Not
Northeast.
North England. Northeast. New England. I've managed to try. The majority of others are onion juice to me, not fruit juice. Disclaimer: I didn't have the core Cannonball, but I think I'd have had that. Oh, words have gone from me right now.
So just to be clear, Little's Homebrew said Neo because it's one of the very few New England IPAs I've managed to enjoy. The majority of others are onion juice to me, not fruit juice. Disclaimer, I didn't have the core Cannonball, but I think I'd have had that down as the best beer of the lot. Why did you not have that?
Why would you? Yeah, if you're going to do the run, you've got to do the run.
You need the basic. You need the base.
Yeah.
John Stanley at JW Stanley 1007. All were very good. Human snatches it for me, as it was such a pleasure to have a great West Coast IPA. Same thoughts as me.
It was, yeah, and I don't disagree that it was a fantastic West Coast IPA.
But Cannonball's always going to be your benchmark, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Without doubt.
Neo was brilliant, but we are so oversaturated with New England IPAs at the moment, meaning Human just shone through for me. I voted Unhuman. I suspected because it needed my support in brackets. I haven't actually had Neo Human yet, but Neo is winning because it gives the Hasboys a unity candidate. We're going political here. The West Coast curmudgeon vote is split over 3 choices: Classic, Front and Divide and Rule, and Judean's People Front, which prompted me to reply with a line for Brian tweet, I have to admit. And that was from Joe Hill at Multiplex Rant.
So I think that pretty much sums up our listeners' views.
And for everyone who hasn't tasted it when we've released the show, when you do, please let us know what you think.
Yeah. So, did we do which one was our favourite? Have we done that?
You've done Cannonball, I've done Human.
Yeah. Clearly suffering from this evening's beverages. I'm not sure we know what we're doing next time.
No, we don't, but we're hopefully recording at the new venue since I've moved in Michelle. We have a breakfast bar near the beer cupboard, which Dave will be guarding with his life. Which
we're going to name eventually on Untapped as a place.
Yeah, we're going to create a venue.
Yes, we will create a venue, but just get involved
as ever
in what we've said tonight. Use the hashtag opinions and we're there, and we are just going to now retire to our comfy chairs while we finish the rest of the Unhuman Cannibal. Cheers.
Cannonball, 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 cannonball. It's not what you do, it's how you do. Be anything you wanna be. It's not what you got, it's how